I'm really happy to be back with all of you. And yeah, I missed teaching while I was gone, that's for sure. But big thanks to Allie Brooks for covering for me. And I know we did a couple recorded ones. I hope you liked that recorded yoga nidra. Um, so yeah, I will definitely weave in things that I learned. And for those of you that don't know, I was gone first camping, but then the second part that's more relevant for this is that I did a 10-day dark retreat in Guatemala where it's an ancient practice, where people would go up into the caves in the Himalayas and meditate for long periods of time. So it's kind of stemming from that tradition. It needs to be studied more, but they're finding that probably the dark has some real healing benefits for the body as well. And so there were a number of different reasons I wanted to do it, but one of the big ones is that I feel like there are just so many distractions in the everyday world. I mean, especially my phone and Netflix, and like none of these things are bad. Of course we need them and they bring pleasure, but I think having short periods of time where you disconnect from all of those things, just to give yourself a break, even because it's a lot easier to meditate, it's a lot easier to go inward. And that's one thing that I found in the dark was my mind was just so much stiller. And I have a really pretty busy mind, even though I've been meditating for a really long time. But it likes to think and it likes to make up stories, and it's a very busy mind. And I was surprised at how still things were in the dark. Um, so if any of you has any interest after hearing me talk about it, I'm more than happy to talk with you one on one, or if there's enough interest, I can even spend 5 minutes, 5 more minutes during a meditation, and just it'll weave in though the things that I learned. I'm gonna try to not talk for too long because I feel like this time we've all set aside for meditation is so valuable. So I think with that, why don't we settle into the meditation postures, and just as you're doing that, listen to the body. That's one thing I learned in the dark was I think I had this idea when I first started going to meditation retreats that you had to be stiff and like rigid. And I had all these weird ideas about how you're supposed to be when you're at a meditation retreat. And my body just got really stiff and sore. And so I think that's another thing I was reminded of in the dark. Like the reason that yoga, the asana part of yoga, the movement part of yoga exists was to prepare the mind for meditation, and most of us know, some of us know that, but a lot of people don't know that. And so the way we use yoga in the West is very different than it was originally intended. And so in the dark, I would do a lot of movement, a lot of yoga, and a lot of there's kind of mindful, intuitive movement is what I started to think of it as, where I'm just kind of like, you're just moving your body how it intuitively feels good, and it's not about like, oh, I've got to become more flexible or more strong. It's really more about like, what does the body want to do right now? And so kind of closing your eyes, and we'll do a little very simple mindful intuitive movement together. And you don't have to get up. You can stay seated, but if your body feels like it wants to get up, I would encourage you to do that. And just start to move your body however, literally however it feels good. You might be on a mat on the floor, and it might feel good to just, lay on your stomach or go into child's pose with your forehead on the ground. Whatever your body intuitively, and you might not know, so many of us have gotten so disconnected from our bodies. I know for most of my 20s and 30s, I felt really disconnected from my body. It's really only been in the last few years in my 40s that I feel like I'm like starting to even hear my body. I was just so disconnected from it. And so I think that's really true for a lot of people, and so if you don't know what I mean by listen to your body and do what your body wants, just start to try to move and, stretch and allow the body to just move in any way, and then what feels good, do that, and what doesn't feel pleasant or doesn't draw you in, don't do that. It's that simple. I find when I invite my body to do what it wants, I end up doing a lot of this where I'm sitting kind of cross-legged and I just want to make circles with my upper body. It's kind of like a hip opener. If you're sitting on the floor, um, if you're sitting in a chair with a back, this might be a little bit harder to do. And for your body, it might not feel good. That's the thing. Is each of our bodies, what I'm trying to get you to do is to tune in slowly, to start trusting the intuitive, innate healing wisdom of your own body. It knows a lot of stuff that our brains can't grasp. They just don't. The body knows things in ways that the mind, it just can't access. So, all right. So once you've moved a bit, done some mindful, intuitive movement, start to come into a stiller posture. Maybe you're sitting on a chair or on the floor. Maybe you're lying down if that's what your body needs today. I always want you to do what your body is telling you to do. We have this way of thinking that one way is better than the other, and we should do it like that because the teacher's doing it like that. And that is not true. What I want you to do is what feels good for your body in this moment in time. And so find a resting spot. You might play around with a couple different positions. And nothing's perfect, and people who deal with chronic pain, obviously it's not going to feel great ever, but find the least aggravating position for your body, because I'm learning, and I learned in the dark room, that a big part of meditation is the whole part where we tune into the body and really encourage the body to soften. Because one thing that became really clear in the first 3 days was how tightly I am holding my body all the time. And in the dark with nothing to do, I could just kind of see how just protected and held my whole structure was. And I think most of us have trauma of one form or another. We might not even call it trauma, but most of us grew up with not perfect parents because people are not perfect when they're in their 20s and 30s having children. Most of us are pretty messy at that time, and so our parents were pretty messy. And we all have some form of trauma. For some of us is very severe, and for some of us it's more subtle, and we might not even call it trauma. But we all have ways that we have suffered, and we all have ways that we've disconnected from our own bodies and disconnected from some of those younger parts of us. We all have done it. We all do it. We might be aware of it at this point, or maybe not yet, but the body is holding all those old traumas. And The other thing about that is that I think many of us, and this is what I noticed in the dark, that I think because of early childhood um, trauma, I think I have been holding all my muscles super tightly as sort of like this energetic shield against criticism or judgment or, whatever was flying at me when I was a kid. And so I'm sharing that so that you can start to tune into your own body in sort of a way of like a very sweet way of starting to develop a dialogue with your own body of like, oh, darling, are you holding the trauma for me? Are you holding the past for me? And of course we all are. And so each body is going to hold it differently. For me, it was a tightening, a resisting, a bracing against the next onslaught of abuse. And so your body is going to be different. It's going to have reacted a different way to whatever happened to you over your lifetime. And I'm learning through my own body that I'm helping my body know that it's safe by allowing it to soften in places and circumstances where I really am safe. Because the body's alarm system from trauma is just like it's just jacked up. It's just too it's turned on loud, you know. It's not that we're actually in danger most of the time unless we're still in an abusive situation. And then that's a different thing. But most of the time the trauma is in the past. And unless you're in a dangerous violent relationship, which is a whole different thing, and then you just then it's more about how to get connected and help yourself out of that situation. But when we're not acutely in danger, it's just that our bodies are remembering the danger and they're sort of replaying it. But this keeps us trapped in a state of trauma, right? Because our body is always saying, I'm in danger, I'm in danger. And so what I'm learning through my own body is this real need when we go into meditation to encourage the body to soften and help it understand that in this moment, if you are safe, then helping the body and these younger parts of you that are sort of held in the body, helping them feel safer. Otherwise, we're just meditating with a 5 alarm dinging the whole time, through the body. So there's a lot of talking, and what I want to do is something to show you what I mean through your own body, an experiential exercise. So find your resting place, meaning, a place you can be relatively comfortable. You may need to move. If you need to move, move. Um, and just start by tuning into just noticing very simply the backs of your eyelids if your eyes are closed. Just noticing if you can see any light through your eyelids. Noticing, are they fully closed or are they sort of fluttering? And if they're open, if your eyes are open, just kind of noticing the eyes blinking. Just kind of becoming aware of the eyes as a way to begin to tune into the body. And then if it feels safe today, allowing the eyes to close. If for whatever reason from your past, keeping your eyes open feels safer or better or calmer, keep your eyes open and just allow the eyes to sort of fuzzily rest on something neutral if you can, something not moving ideally. Many people will use a candle, but a flame that's enclosed so the flame doesn't wiggle. So you can, if you have a picture of like a sunset, or there are these kind of like archetypal calming pictures. So if your eyes are open, pick something calming. if your eyes are closed, just start to notice like the patterns of light on the backs of your eyelids, kind of watching these different colors, shapes. Maybe it's just black. Just inviting the eyes to rest. Our eyes work so hard and can see what your energy is doing by how your eyes feel. Sometimes we realize we're leaning forward, we're grasping at something, and the eyes can kind of have this like pulling feeling. See if you can allow your eyes just to rest back in their sockets. Just inviting them that they don't have to lean forward like that. And then just imagining that all those little muscles around the eyes that are squinting and making faces, and you do a lot with those muscles around the eyes. Just see if you can breathe into the muscles around the eyes. Imagine that you can direct the oxygen right to the eyes. And that as you breathe out, the tension and the holding around the eyes just kind of drains out through the out breath. So when we breathe in, we're bringing oxygen, healing energy, soothing quality to that part of our body. And then when we breathe out, we're imagining that the tension is just carried easily, just let go of almost on the out breath. It's not a forcing, it's just a releasing. And it's okay if tension still remains. It's not about forcing anything because that's the opposite of what we're doing here. We're just inviting the body to let go a little bit. And, if you have really deep or old trauma that you're working with, that the body may not release much, and it's not because the body is doing something wrong. It's because it just needs more time to feel safe. And it might need, an experienced trauma therapist to feel safe. So, if you're noticing that your body is super tense and it doesn't really release much today, by all means, do not beat up on the body. The body has been doing so much for you, holding all these things until you're ready to process them. So the body is just doing us such a favor. We're gonna have so much gratitude for these bodies, even though many of us feel like our body is the enemy or it's fighting us. So I'd invite you just to take a moment to just notice that your body, even if it feels like you've been battling with it, it's doing a lot for you right now. It's supporting you, it's breathing you, it's moving you around, and it's holding a lot of old stuff. And so we can have compassion for our very own bodies. Like, oh, sweetie, it's no wonder you got sick. You've been holding all this stress, you've been holding all this old trauma. So just really bringing this sense of appreciation to the body, a sense of, wow, you've been doing a lot for me. And that's what happened in the dark is I just had such a dawning of like, wow, my body has held on to a lot for me. And it's really been protecting me or thinking it's protecting me. And just needs a lot of love and compassion now because it's really been working hard. And so in the dark, as I became more and more aware of all the tension that I was holding, I'd consciously relax. And so I would just, that was the meditation, was just sort of paying attention to the level of tension that I had and then consciously relaxing the body. And this would happen hundreds and hundreds of times over those 10 days. And over time, the body did let go more and more. And I was doing a lot of self massage too while I was laying down. So I'm just inviting you through what I learned to see if any of this resonates with you. If your body feels tight or you have a lot of chronic pain. I certainly do and did. And I think a big part of it is the tension we've been holding to brace against the world. And if we're actually safe now, then we can start to help the body learn that the past is the past. And it's not fast, and we have to be very sweet and gentle, but we can help our bodies learn that they are now safe and that they don't have to be so tight all the time. And maybe that doesn't resonate for everyone, but I'm imagining it's going to resonate for a lot of you. And so just see where, and for if you're a pretty like loose person and you don't hold a lot of tension in your body, just see if there are any pockets of tension or any pockets of resistance. Most of us have some, and it's being held in the body. Just seeing, and sometimes it doesn't even feel like muscle tension. It might feel like when I feel like my heart is shut down, I can feel like a slight tightness in my chest. Just tune into your body right now. And for some of you, it may be really obvious. It might be so much tension in the face and neck and shoulders. That's where most of mine was. And if that's the case for you, what I would encourage you to do is just breathe in. Imagine that you're breathing into the area of tension. Like if it's in your face, breathe into your face. And then breathe out and imagine that all those little muscles of your face are just releasing all this old stuff they've been carrying. And you can let your jaw drop. The jaw and the mouth is a big one for most of us. So, right now, just bring attention to your face. Breathe into your face. And then actually just breathe with your mouth open. So, air can come in through your mouth or your nose, and your jaw is slack. So, there's actually a space between your top teeth and bottom teeth. It might feel kind of strange at first if you're used to meditating with your mouth closed. Just try this. Just experimenting with something to see about letting muscles soften before we even try to meditate. Just breathing in, allowing the jaw to drop even farther if there's still tension. Noticing the eyes. And the muscles around the eyes. So now breathing into the entire face, forehead, the eyebrows, that area between the eyebrows, where some of us really scrunch our faces up, the eye muscles, the cheek muscles, and the muscles inside the mouth and the tongue, too. Just breathing into that whole area, inviting the face to release any tension that it wants to let go of into the out breath. Imagining that the tension can just drain from the body and be so easily released. Some of you may want to pair the out breath with the word soften. And that is kind of a, you know, dictatory type of statement, or like, not like you have to do this, but more just like this sweet invitation to the body of, oh, darling, you can soften now. You've just been working so hard to protect me, but we're safe now. And we can just soften and let go. And we're learning how to be kind to ourselves, right? We're practicing in meditation. We're noticing if that critical voice or that bossy voice or the perfectionistic voice, any of those are running the show, just aware that those are younger parts that think they're helping us. And we're just going to help them understand that actually the way we talk to ourselves during meditation is we can re-traumatize ourselves. We can be harsh with ourselves, and that's not the idea. It's never been the idea. We confuse it and we think it is, but it's not. The idea is to use this meditation to be sweet and gentle and kind with yourself. And for many of us, that is very hard and very unusual. And so it may just be an idea of, oh, that might even be a possibility at this point, or gosh, that doesn't even seem like a possibility to be sweet to myself. I'm a bad person, or I've done this bad thing. But the thing is we've all done things that we regret, and we did them from a place of suffering. We did them from a place of our own trauma. Nobody wants to create havoc or hurt people. We do that out of our wounded places. And it's those wounded places that need the care. And when we give them the care, then we stop hurting other people because we're tending to our wounded places instead of just acting them out. So, the most selfless thing you can do, the most selfless thing you can do is to start to be kind to yourself. That is what will ripple outwards into your life and your family and your friends, into your level of reactivity with other people, into the way you talk to your loved ones when you're stressed. It's only the self compassion, it's only cultivating the self love that's going to change things in your outward relationships. If you keep beating yourself up, and judging yourself, that will always get projected outwards at the people you love the most. Because if you're treating yourself that way, that's just how your mind starts to practice. But when you start to be kind and compassionate to yourself, that's what starts to radiate outwards. So do it for your family, do it for your friends, do it for everyone around you. It's not just for you. Self compassion, we feel like, oh, it's selfish. It's the least selfish thing. So, and self compassion is about softening the body, allowing the body to rest, helping the body understand she or he is safe. So I'm going to be quiet for the last 15 minutes of our meditation and just allow you to practice with this. Just this very simple practice of breathing into the body. And it's not like we're pushing away the tension or the memories that are attached to the tension. That's not it. We're not involving ourselves in the stories right now. So when the mind wants to go to thinking, what I want you to do is just try this game of noticing when the mind is thinking or perpetuating stories. And you just name it thinking. And I want you to see how you do it with what tone of voice. The tone is very important. See if you're being brutal with yourself, like thinking, or you're thinking. You could be self-critical even with just the tone of voice. And so I want you to try to talk to yourself in the most nurturing way possible. I remember listening to this book where this instruction was given. It was Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart. And she told a story about a guy who started saying, thinking good, buddy. And that was his way of being like really sweet with himself because he was noticing that his voice was very harsh. So he'd just be like, thinking good, buddy. When I was in the dark, I was doing this to, not fall down like major fear spirals in the dark. And I would name the thinking, especially if it was a big fear story that was trying to pierce into my consciousness. And it wasn't about pushing away the fear, the emotion of it, that I stayed with, but it was about not perpetuating a story. And so I would just say, thinking, ding, 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 almost like thinking, you caught it, good job, so more of like an excited, you're doing great. Like the way I want you to start to try to be with yourself is more as like this cheerleader. Our ego needs a cheerleader, our ego needs the support and love. And so rather than being self-critical, try being happy for yourself when you catch the thinking. And it's not that thinking is bad, that's the thing. We need thinking. But when we're practicing this kind of meditation, it's the practice of coming back to the present moment and dropping the thoughts that we're training our mind. We're training our mind so that it can be more open to these states of compassion and openness, right? It's not the thing, thinking is bad. So see if you can, for the next, 12, 13 minutes that we have left, the practice is to breathe in to any tension in the body, and then breathe out, imagining the tension can be released. You can add the word soften if that helps you. And then whenever thinking comes in, very simply name it thinking, and you might add a sweet name for yourself. You might say, thinking, sweetheart, just to remind yourself that this is not about being harsh. It's about being actually practicing being kind. And so however that looks for you, label your thinking, be happy for yourself. You caught it. And then almost like one of those thought bubbles in a cartoon, you could imagine the thinking just sort of disintegrating because it's just thoughts. It's just made up. It's illusion. And then just come back into the next breath. Okay, so the thinking happens, you label it, poof, the thinking disappears, and then you rest into the next breath. And you remember that, oh, right, we're tuning into tension, we're releasing tension, we're allowing the body to soften. So that's the practice. And I've spoken a lot, so apologize for all the words. And now we'll be quiet and we'll just practice the technique. And I'll bring you out and we will do a few ohms and then we'll have a few minutes for questions. Tuning into the present moment, just this one breath, just the pause, just the out breath. Noticing thinking and naming it when it arises, just to draw attention. Poof goes the thought bubble and back into the next breath. Just beginning again over and over again. Softening the jaw, softening the mouth, softening the eyes, allowing the body to let go into the present moment. Just the subtle sensations of the flow of air in and out through the mouth and nose. Cool air clearing away any thought debris. Poof, it's just gone. Just noticing sensations arise and fall in the body. Just seeing the changing landscape of the body. It's always changing very subtly. Nothing stays the same. So let's complete our practice today by I invite you to do 3 ohms with me. And for those of you that haven't toned before, the idea is not about the sound that comes out. The main thing that we're doing is we're paying attention to the vibration of the Sanskrit syllable om in our bodies. And we're just feeling the om. So you're just feeling the vibration of your own voice in your own body. And you're tuning into that as a way to really get grounded in this moment, really get connected to the moment and to your body. So we'll do those 3 together, and we're going to first breathe in together, and then on the out breath, we'll do the first om. So let's all breathe in. And I'd just like to share a quote with you from, um, it's thought that St. Francis of Assisi first said this, although it's not totally clear. And the Hermitage, the place that I did the dark retreat in Guatemala, it's kind of their tagline, and it's this mystical quote, and it goes like this. I'll read it a few times. The one you are looking for is the one who is looking. The one you are looking for is the one who is looking. The one you are looking for is the one who is looking. Just points us back to that witness consciousness. Just being able to rest in the one who is looking. There's all this stuff going on in front of us and inside of us, but then further back, there's the one who is looking, the one who can see it all that we cultivate in meditation. And that is the place that we can keep sitting further and further back, learning how to rest so that we don't have to get so wrapped up in all the drama in front of us. We can just keep noticing. And I'd like to just take a moment to dedicate the merit of our practice. May the fruits of our practice today together, all putting our collective energies and compassion and intention for waking up, putting all of that energy together and inviting that energy may be expanded in each one of us and spread outwards in all directions so that all beings may wake up and awaken and be free of the causes and conditions of suffering and come to know the true causes of peace, the true causes of lasting happiness, and the awareness of the ever-changing state of the mind and resting in something even bigger than that. May this practice spread in all directions and help to awaken all beings everywhere. I bow to each one of you. So grateful that you took the time to help everybody awaken. It's the best thing we can do. It's really what became very clear in the dark was it's the self-compassion, it's the self-love that will change everything. Because if we don't have it for ourselves, we're projecting that stuff out at other people. It's not that we want to hurt other people. It just happens out of our own wounding. So anyway, I've been talking a lot, and I know for some of you that are more experienced meditators, that was probably way too much talking. I try to vary how I teach a little bit, and so the more talking is definitely for people who are newer to the path. So I hope that you more experienced ones can roll with all the talking every once in a while. And I'll try to make it next time where there's a lot less talking. But if anybody has questions, I do have something right at 1, so I'll probably get off a couple minutes before that, but there's a few minutes for questions if anybody has one. Thank you. Everything you said really resonated. The talking was good. Thanks. Yeah, can hear my own self-critical voice. You're talking too much. And everybody needs something a little different from the teaching, and so sometimes it'll resonate and sometimes it won't. I love the variety of these sessions. Thanks. You're welcome, Mary. Thank you. If anybody has any questions about what the dark was like, or where I did it, or, I learned a lot in there, and I'm sure it'll just it's percolating in me. I'm integrating it still, obviously. But it was a very interesting experience being in a pitch black room for 10 days by myself. Very interesting practice. Very grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. And yeah, definitely was not what I expected it to be. Definitely had a ton of fear going into it. And yeah, was really amazed at how subtle things were once I was in there. I think a big part of it is we're picking up on a lot of other people's energy, especially those of us that are empaths. And that actually when you get quiet, and you have an opportunity to not be in the world for a bit, retreat is really valuable. Like dark retreats, not dark retreats, just taking, even just if you're not used to it, taking even one day where you just have your phone off and you don't talk to anyone, or just 1 hour if one day seems impossible, or you just turn everything off and just give yourself a break. Thanks, Dr. Sarah. Good to have you back. I do enjoy the variety of what joy. How was the retreat different than what you expected? I thought I was going to be terrified most of the time. I thought that I was going to be really emotional in there. That's what I really thought was going to happen. That was probably one of the biggest lessons. I had so much anticipatory fear about being in the dark for 10 days by myself, because my attachment stuff comes out in like what I thought was a fear of being alone. And that's not how it was at all. And so what I learned is that probably most of the fear I feel, like 99.9%, is all about the future. It's all about stuff that hasn't happened yet. And that's what fear and anxiety are, right? It's about stories about the future that are probably never going to come true. And that was just easier to see in the dark, because I was like, I don't want to go down a fear spiral. I don't want to, I don't want to have to sit alone in the dark with some crazy fear story. So I was just like more diligent about catching it. And I felt like I had a good, really important reason to catch it. And so the fear didn't get out of control at all. And I mean, when it did come, there was actually an earthquake one night while I was in there. I knew it was earthquake proof, but that was the one time that my mind got pretty fearful. I started imagining boulders like falling in front of the door, and then it required different tools. But for the most part, the fear was all anticipatory. Like all the stuff my mind said was going to happen didn't happen. And so that was the most important lesson for me, is like all the stuff we make up, all the bad things that are going to happen in the future. I mean, bad things will happen in the future to all of us. Like, there is suffering in life. People die, people get sick. This is the truth of life. But we spend so much time anticipating the bad things that are going to happen instead of just being right here, right now, as if that would somehow soften the bad things, instead of just being like, well, I'm going to deal with the bad things when they happen. That's the difference. And that's what they found in like long-term studies of monks or people who meditate like a lot, is that they have fear, right? And they have a pain response. There's one study where they would like shock people. They have their brain lights up in the same way that everybody else's does, but what happens is their brain goes back to homeostasis much faster, and it doesn't relive the bad thing that happened, and it doesn't start to be afraid of the next bad thing that's going to happen. In the experiment it was a shock, but you could apply that to anything. And so that's the thing that I want to impart, I guess, to anybody who's still listening, is like, really start to be aware of your fear mind and how it's making up a bunch of stuff all the time. And it's all stuff that you don't know if it's actually going to happen or not. So do you actually want to spend your precious life planning the bad things that are going to happen, worrying about the bad things that are going to happen? Or do you want to keep coming back to now? And one phrase that I used a lot that just was really with me when I was in the dark was clear mind, not fear mind. I'd say that to myself a lot. And it wasn't a disallowing of the fear, because I was being with the body and being with the way fear feels in the body, but that was a reminder to me to allow the mind to clear, because when those fear stories would start to weave themselves, I would see it and I would say thinking, ding, ding, ding. And that would usually allow me to see the fear enough that then I could go back to what I was calling clear mind, where I would just breathe in, feel the cool breath, imagine the thoughts disintegrating. And I would just do that over and over again. So for those of you that have a lot of anxiety or fear, which is something I've struggled with my entire life, maybe try that practice, when you're meditating, but when you're not meditating too, of when you start to feel fearful, recognize your thinking, name it, and then see if you can just breathe in and imagine all those thoughts just poof, just kind of disintegrating. Because they're just thoughts, it's illusions that we create for ourselves that feel real. Um, it's different when we're dealing with somebody who's sick or who's dying, and then, I mean, but even then, the fear stories tell us about how things are going to be after they pass. It's not to minimize anything. It's just to say that we create a lot of suffering for ourselves by anticipating the bad things and replaying them. We'll see if you could just start to notice that about your own mind, and see if sometimes if you can let the story go and keep coming back to the body, though. So we're not disallowing it. There's fear here. Fear is fine. Just feel the body and let the story disintegrate, because it's the story that keeps the fear going. But if you let the story go, the fear will move through your body of its own accord, and you don't have to suffer as long. So I hope that answered your question, Mary. There's lots of different things. There's so many different things I want to share with you guys that I really learned in there, and it'll all come out in the right time. Yeah, thank you, DJ. And I just can't wait to be together with you guys in person and be able to hug everybody, and hopefully, I'm not sure when it'll happen, but it'll be really lovely when it does and we can share in person. And maybe, yeah, because I'm excited to hear all of your stories too. I know everybody's got so much wisdom to share about this time and their own insights and realizations. I feel like we're all the teacher here. So I'm looking forward to learning from you guys too and your own evolution. So I better get off to my other class, and deep bow to each one of you and much love. And yeah, I'll be teaching next week. So I'll see you on here at noon on Wednesday.